Tater Baseball, founded in 2015, with the origin story of Tater as American as the game of baseball. 2015, Tater Baseball, formerly Tater Bats, was born out of a shed in the backyard with a dream of becoming something special. Today with Jeremiah, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of the baseball business world, the entrepreneurship, and talk about really his business and why it's so successful. Jeremiah, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Eric. It's a pleasure. Excited to continue talking about Tater with you guys.
Well, that's great. Well, why don't you go ahead and do a quick introduction to you, also your brother, I think the two co-founders of Tater Baseball, and then we'll get into the question. So just a little bit of background. We talked about a shed to a garage and to where you are today. So give us kind of the background of why you guys decided to start this.
Perfect. So we started Tater in 2015, like you mentioned. I was just getting into my senior year of high school. Now, I was going through the same circuit that a lot of young athletes that probably listen to this podcast are going through and preparing for college. And a few years prior to that, my dad designed a training bat for me. It was a double knob, short bat, split grip bat. And fast forward a few years later, my brother says something along the lines of, "Hey, I can sell that." So, we come from a baseball family background. Tater is very much so a family company through and through. Everyone who works at Tater is family, or in one way becomes family. And it's also represented by the people we work with through professional baseball as well. We have a saying called the Tater fam that we really harp on because, it's what we like to have as our backbone of the company. So we started off the training bat. Quickly, we started making bats in our shed. My dad and I would do a lot of the product testing together. We had a cage in our backyard. And then my brother Freddie, who you mentioned, was focusing more on the back end, getting Tater to prepare for becoming a brand. So it was a lot of fun those first early years. We quickly moved into our garage after a couple months of selling bats that 2015 summer, and began manufacturing high-quality game bats, and got approved for MLB in 2017-2018 season. So quick turnaround for us. We're one of the quickest companies to do so, and luckily we've been able to work with players of all ages and all the way at the top to big leaguers like Starling Marte, Teoscar Hernandez, Yan Gomes, and trickle down to servicing a lot of college programs through training bats and other goods, and then trickling down even more to little leagues and getting guys their first wood bat. So we really do a little bit of everything. In 2020, we changed from Tater Bats to Tater Baseball, and I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit about that transition later on, but that's a little brief story on us, baseball family through and through.
So baseball family. So your dad designed this first training bat that you guys started using, really just to, as you said, you're going through the same process of a lot of the kids that are watching these programs. Talk about the baseball background, right? Most dads aren't able to go out in the backyard or the wood shop and create a training bat for their kids. So give us a little bit of background of where the expertise came from, but maybe the background of your dad a little bit to giving him the knowledge of what he was putting together for you guys.
Absolutely. So my dad, Fred Sr., he's an engineer by trade. So never was a baseball player, but, he coached my brother and I all throughout our youth to, pre-college days. So he was the kind of guy that, what he didn't know, he would find out, and always had that mechanical mind in the sense of what can we do to help these guys get better. So it was something that we wanted to work on bat path, and I'm sure that's talked about a lot on the podcast, and working on bat speed and things of that nature. And at the time when I was getting into, this was around sophomore, junior year of high school, I was hitting with a former professional player, big league guy, Darren Bragg, who's based out of Connecticut as well, just like us. Good friend of the family. And he was having me use sledgehammers, pipes, anything you could name it, all the unconventional training tools that he could find we were using. My dad kind of had the idea. I was like, hey, how can we kind of encompass what we're doing here into one bat and make something that's applicable that will actually isolate some of those movements, isolate the swing. And that was how we started. So thankfully, the constant pursuit of making the next best thing has been our MO since the beginning, and we have my dad to thank for that.
That's great. Engineer by background. I've talked to a number of guys from an entrepreneur perspective, engineering, trying to figure things out. Baseball is very mechanical. Baseball is there's a lot of physics that are involved. Talked to a number of people just that all of a sudden, 15 minutes into the conversation, we're talking physics, we're talking engineering, we're talking a lot of different things. And baseball is kind of the side thing. That's a big leap, though, from building a training bat for your own kids and maybe for the teams and the people that you have. And all of a sudden, within a couple of years, you guys are now MLB certified. You're starting to roll this out more of a nationwide type. From a local business to a nationwide business. Talk about some of the steps that needed to be taken. How did you learn to work in this world? A lot of people don't understand kind of the things, the nuances that come from it. There are some baseball things that need to be known, but there's also some business things, obviously, to be understood. Talk about kind of the blend of those two and how you got into the MLB and how you transitioned from just that shed to where you are today.
For sure. So baseball, like everything, is a huge networking, pretty much who you know, where you know. And initially when we started Tater, we were pretty heavy in our regional focus, at least in Connecticut and Massachusetts, in terms of connections that we had locally. But when you talk about professional baseball, we pretty much didn't know anyone. Let's just say bare bones, no one. So really it was, how can we get our foot in the door and just constantly making connections and, being good people. We're pretty big on relationship building, and thankfully that's pretty much driven us to making these great connections where people feel that making a soft introduction to introduce Tater to someone, they have no problem doing so. So when we started Tater in our garage, our first pretty much, hey, this is serious, is we started making game bats for a local college at the time that swung wood bat, Southern Connecticut State University. And that was pretty much our first leap. It was like, hey, we got our first 60 bat order, which at that time was, sensational and crazy. Now we get those all the time, but the first one is always really fun. And the reason why we really started doing the training bats and transitioning to game bats is we noticed that our training bat wasn't breaking. So we focused on producing a premium training bat. Someone had told my dad, hey, your training bat doesn't break. I always get training bats and they break for whatever reason. So decided to make a game bat for me and trickle down. Some of my teammates wanted some. Everyone started having success. And some of my teammates from that first summer of Tater starting are still playing professional baseball now, and I'm able to work with them as their vendor, which is fun and cool. But that was really what started it. And within 2 or 3 months of making bats in our shed, we transitioned into our garage. And we really just met different professional players and professional coaches just from situations like how Joey introduced us to you, which is really cool. And it was a lot of hard work and trial and error. We pretty much tell people running Tater is similar to what the professional baseball player goes through in the daily struggles of, hey, you got to get up, you got to wake up, and you got to do your job, and you got to do all the extra work. So luckily we grew up as a very training focused family. My dad was very strict. I wouldn't say strict on us, but we had a schedule where, hey, these core values of what it's like to be a really good baseball player that had helped us, worry about transitioning into running a company. So we had all that behind us, but a lot of R&D in the beginning phases where our first professional player, his name was Manny Cruz, who was a family friend of ours. So Manny and I would try every game bat that my dad would make for us in our backyard together. We'd do some exo velo testing to see, hey, which process did we do on this bat? How did that, translate to more in-game type of situation, and go from there. So every year our bats get better, and it's something that we say since 2015. So a lot of struggles along the way, but that's what builds a company.
That's great. Your point that you made, I want to touch on that. You talked about developing the discipline and some of the core values in the baseball world that transitioned over to the business world. I think this is really important. And that's why I believe that baseball and athletes specifically really understand that you're doing 95% of the time is training development. And then it's the 5% of the performance, right? And if you only focus on the performance, then there's going to be a lot of issues and a lot of concerns. Go into that a little bit on how you took that baseball discipline and then transition. You talked about that from a business. Go into a little bit more detail of what that means of waking up every day and doing the kind of the core things that allow you to build your business.
Those early days of Tater, we had some long mornings and long nights. So we were ready to get up at 5 or 6 a.m. and stay up till 2 a.m. the following morning and get things done. So, when we started Tater, just like any other small business at the time, my family was still my brother and my dad and my mother, working another job. So we pretty much worked on Tater from 5:30 to whenever we finished our work at night. And at the time, I was just getting into my freshman year of college. So I was a little bit more behind the scenes at that time, playing baseball at Stonehill College in Massachusetts, getting ready for my season. But, those summers, those winter days, very long days where if you don't have that discipline, it's like, hey, you can kind of feel like throwing in a towel, but that was never an option for us. When you want to get better, you want to be the best. It's just like being a baseball player. You're just constantly hungry for more, and, time on working on something just doesn't matter to you. So, there's been days where spring training rolls around for professional seasons and we have to get up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., meet the players at the ballpark before they get there, and we're staying there till 5 and going to the next ballpark. So, Florida, as everyone knows, is a very spread out spring training setup. And initially when we started Tater, the reason how we met a lot of the guys that use Tater currently is we met them at the ballpark. So it's like we're going to present our own opportunities and make sure that, if it was an effort that didn't lead us to these opportunities.
Isn't that funny? When I talk to coaches and players and parents, it talks about the process that you need to go through in promoting yourself and being out there and being in the right places so that people can find you. It's not as easy. If business is exactly the same way. You can't just build a really good training bat and then expect everybody to just go, hey, this is the best bat. Let's go with Tater. There's a lot of competition out there. You talked about your bats not breaking, and all of a sudden people are going, wait a minute, what might be different here? Talk about utilizing some of the things that you saw at the beginning that might have made your bats stand out, and what have you done since then to kind of get to where you are today?
Something that we're pretty strong on is if we're going to manufacture a game bat or a training bat, it's going to be the best that we can. So we're going to source the best wood. We source everything MLB grade maple and birch. So even if a 10 or 12-year-old guy is getting their bat for the first time, or even a softball player, they're getting the same bat that one of our big leaguers is swinging. We're very strong on that. So, we manufacture about 10 to 12,000 bats a year. And when we do that small batch manufacturing, we're really able to stay meticulous in our craft. So it wasn't to tell you right now, when we started Tater, we pretty much sourced wood from every single place that we could to really get a good idea like where is the best wood, and learning the process fully through in and throughout. So a lot of it too was how can we make this functional, and what are some of those pain points that most people, when they break a bat or they have a training bat, what do they really want? They want something that's going to last and something that has pop. So how can we really service the athlete? And luckily, using wood bat in college as well, we're able to try a bunch of different things and really get, on ground, boots on the ground testing from trusted sources that, wouldn't say, hey, this is a great bat, just to say it's a great bat to hurt your feelings. Like, no, we want the rough, the crude, and be very transparent with us. So that's a lot of it was just wanted to have the best and make the best bat that we could.
You become almost an arborist.
Oh yeah.
I love talking to wood bat manufacturers. There's very little baseball when you really get into it. It's about the type of trees. Are they fast growing trees? Are they slow growing trees? Really changes the composition of that wood, and finding the right source and keeping the thing consistent. I think consistency is also a big thing in the wood bat wood bat world. So let's a couple couple specific questions from a business perspective. What with this, and I appreciate sharing kind of the backstory and what you guys had to go through to get to where you are today. What are some of the biggest challenges that you faced when starting your business, more specifically than, just, hey, getting this thing off the ground, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so the first 2 years of starting Tater, like I mentioned earlier, we did everything in our garage, and everyone would ring our doorbell to come pick up their bats. So the transition from making bats in your home to finding a location that fit best what you're trying to do, that was a big transition period for us. That was a tough time, and thankfully we had a lot of people who helped us. Where, hey, we have to move into a place. It's February, the spring training season starts for pro guys in 3 weeks. We really got to focus on making bats, and then some people really stepped up for us and helped us, and we have them to thank, because without a lot of the Tater family, the whole core, whether they're blood or not, we wouldn't be where we are today. So that was a big transition for us. And then as of recently, we just moved into our newest location. So in 2017, 2018, we moved into our first about 2,800, 3,000 square foot facility in Waterbury, Connecticut. And that was our first home outside of home. And over the last year, we moved to a slightly bigger storefront / manufacturing hub that's around 4,000 square feet, that we pretty much outfitted and built out turnkey from April till now. We actually just finalized our move and brought the equipment in to start making bats at our new place this past weekend. So it's fun, but you get a place in April and you don't really start making bats until February 12th. I mean, it's not easy, especially during, like everyone knows, baseball season starts in April and it finishes in October. So it was a lot of sacrifices made between, we're in our busiest season and making as many bats as we ever have, but we're still, getting ready to outfit our new spot, doing all the work ourselves, which, it's that discipline that we talked about earlier. And it really is the backbone of where we started, just because, we're very hands-on and we like to do things like we do it, but it's, you want something, you got to do it yourself at times.
That's great. One of the big challenges of going from a small family-based business to being a real business. I always laugh because we started as a family-based business and now we're a real business, right? I always laugh because both are real businesses. It's how you perceive it. I think personally, but there's a transition, right, from just a couple, brother, dad, mom, kind of doing things to now there's an organization, there's probably a hierarchy, there's people that have certain responsibilities. How did that happen? What did you guys do? And really specifically, when you talk about it, it's a lot of businesses. Baseball is so cool because there's so many of these little gadget companies. There's all these different things, training devices. There's a lot of these small-based businesses that are kind of, that there's that growing pains of going to that next level. Talk about how you guys dealt with that and how did you determine who was going to do what?
Absolutely. So I'll tell you one story briefly. When we started Tater, us as a family sat down in this very room that I'm in right now. I'm at home today. Surprisingly, we had a snowstorm here in Connecticut, so I'm sitting in our living room. But, we made a pact amongst the family where my brother Freddie and I would work on, everything business related. And then my dad would pretty much focus on the high-end manufacturing. So initially we split, and it's like, hey, you work on manufacturing the best bat, and then we'll take care of everything, whether it's the finances side, the branding side, the marketing, everything that comes into the organizational structure where we are now. So quickly separated, and then within a year or two, pretty much everyone who became part of Tater was helping in the manufacturing process. So initially it was family friends where they would come to my house and they'd help my dad sand bats while we were cutting orders, which is really cool. And it's crazy to think about now, but the first 2 or 3 guys were family friends, and then even or some previous teammates of mine that, hey, I just graduated college and I need something to do this summer. All right, come on, let's go sand bats. So teaching these guys the process, and then as we've grown and gotten a little bit bigger, and especially as we have transitioned into more and more products inside the baseball space, it's really just been a lot of the guys that have pretty much joined Tater. It wasn't anything that kind of was looked for in a sense. They pretty much met us just between a raw and organic relationship, and they saw the need that they wanted to help us, and they saw that they can fit a mold. So we have a couple guys that are like brothers to us now that are in the New York and Connecticut area that, whether they were professional players for us and they were using and advocating for our product, and they come back home and they're retired for baseball, and now they're helping us out day to day on product stuff. Or, a good friend of ours, JJ, helped us with the glove side of things. He's based out of New York. And a good friend of ours, Mark, who had a son that was playing baseball at the time and just met us because he was at a local baseball facility in New York and saw one of our training bats, and someone told him, hey, you got to go up there. You got to meet these guys. So then, he comes up to see us, and, him and I are together for 4 hours from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night. And we had that sort of quick connection. So that's a lot of how it's happened. It's happened very organically. And we've had some guys that, as we've gotten bigger, we're about 10 to 12 person team, including family. And then as family company as it gets, every Saturday, my uncles on my dad's side and my uncle on my mom's side and cousins, they come to Tater on Saturday. We kind of have a big semi-family gathering where everyone's getting work done together. And, it's everyone's working towards one goal and seeing Tater grow.
That's great. That's great. Can you share a pivotal moment or decision that significantly impacted the trajectory of your business?
Yeah. So in 2018, spring training, our first year in big leagues, initially, it's very hard to get MLB guys to swing your wood, right? And I'm sure you've probably heard that from other companies as well. And the reason why we started Tater is because a good friend of ours, Christian Cologne, who played for the Kansas City Royals, won a World Series in 2015. We met him the winter prior to us applying for our certification. He said, wow, I've been playing in the big leagues for a couple of years now, and this is the best wood that I've ever swung. If I make it back to the big leagues this year, I want to swing your guys' stuff. So we, that was and it was funny. We were on vacation at the time in Puerto Rico visiting family, and we had saw him at one of the local stadiums during winter ball. And that was an aha moment, like, hey, some companies wish for an opportunity like this. So let's jump on it. Now, Christian had just come off winning a World Series. He had just signed with the Marlins for the 2017-2018 year. And let's jump on it. So that was the first pivotal moment for us. But, a couple months prior to us making that decision, we get orders from Yan Gomes, Starling Marte, Gregory Polanco, and Carlos Correa, which, 4 big-name guys at the time for a smaller, niche company that's based out of Connecticut. So that was a big moment for us, where proof of concept, a lot of it happened very quickly, where just like how game bats move in the travel baseball space, you get hot with one bat, you show your teammate, you're like, hey, you got to try this. The same thing happened for us. And it's like, wow, we got, 120 bats ordered for spring training. It's right away. And it wasn't, a lot of people couldn't believe it. And it was a testament to some of the hard work. And a couple months after that, Mother's Day, 2018, Yan Gomes hit the first Tater with the Tater. And we got a great photo of him holding his bat, stretched out logo,
That's awesome.
Rose pink Tater, and it was in the Cleveland Times. So, I remember we're sitting down Mother's Day, we're eating dinner together as a family, and I have the game streamed on my laptop, and then we watched it in person, and I can remember exactly how exciting that was. And that was, those couple instances, they're very close in timeline, but had really shaken and the transition of Tater. And there's been some stuff recently, but those are the early ones are some that you never forgot.
That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. Now, Jeremiah, how do you define success, and you and your co-founders define success, and what goals are you working towards achieving in the future?
For sure. So how we achieve success is, we're getting a product from factory to field. And if we can help the player reach the next level, if they want to make it to the next level through product, then we're happy, right? So for the guy that's playing high school ball right now, in 2 years, he's playing college ball and he's going through his summer circuit, and he wants a high-performing game bat to showcase his talents in front of, the college coaches that go see him. And he does make that transition, and he comes back and tells us, hey, I just committed to such and such school. Thank you guys for making me the best bats you can. Those are great feelings. And then similarly, when a college guy transitioned to pro ball, and then the pro ball guy that's transitioning from upwards through the hierarchy of minor league baseball. So success for us is seeing everyone grow with us. And, we always know that we've took a steady growth plan where We never wanted to grow too quickly, but strength in numbers, and we have a core of both college and minor league guys that are big advocates for us. Where, hey, let's take a hands-on approach and let's make you your custom model if you're 1 or 2 years into pro ball, and what's the best bat for you. And then when they call you and they hit 3 home runs or in one weekend and 2 home runs, those are the kinds of ways of success that we envision things. Of course, on the business side, whether it's sales or number of bats produced, like that's all great. But, when the way we look at it is if we're doing a good job, it's going to reflect on the field. And Tater will grow just because of that.
That's great. We're with Jeremy Tater, co-founder of Tater Baseball, and we're really thankful for you being on the program, talking about the kind of the beginnings of Tater Baseball, where the origins of it. One last question for you, Jeremiah. Looking back, what advice would you give to yourself or others when you were just starting out in entrepreneurship?
Oof, let's see. As cliche as it sounds, is time management. So the first couple, I graduated college in 2020, and I was still playing baseball throughout the first couple of years of Tater, in essence. So, I'd come home, or Stonehill was about 2 hours away from home. So, in a very strict college baseball schedule. So, I was working on things outside of where I could from home, fielding gloves, apparel, uniforms, things of that nature. So, when I would come home, it'd be a whole kind of aura of what do I have to get done today, right? So I've got to train, I've got to work on the company, I've got to train again, I've got to make sure I'm eating right and make sure, everyone is happy with their orders. So initially I would say between my freshman and sophomore year of college, I was still very young and thought where it's like, I'll figure it out. I'll do it as I go. Where now as I've gotten a little bit older, you start to plan things out, hour to hour, which I wish I had done a little sooner, but you learn the importance of that as you get older. So the biggest advice I would have for anyone, whether it's baseball entrepreneurship, is time management. As cliche as it is, I'm sure a bunch of people say that, but it's a very important skill.
It is, and that's why there's so many books on it, right? I swear they don't stop. It's one of the most critical things when starting a business as well as running a business long term. Jeremiah, go ahead and just give a quick recap of Tater Baseball, what you have to provide, where can we find your information, and what's the next big step for you guys?
For sure. So, Tater Baseball is a premium professional baseball company. We're primarily focused the last several years on manufacturing premium game bats, as the company had transitioned and players have wanted to use more products from us because they like the service. We incorporated premium batting gloves, fielding gloves, team apparel, whether it's training apparel that is very focused on an elevated look and elevated appearance for guys and athletes. So you can find us on Instagram. Our Instagram tag is Tater Baseball. And then also on TikTok is Tater Baseball, and our website is taterbaseball.com. If you tune in on any MLB games throughout spring training or an MLB, if you see someone using a Tater glove on the mound or swinging a bat, feel free to send us a photo on Instagram and tag us. We love those situations. And, as Tater continues to grow, there will be more of a presence at every level. A big transition for us was we're getting, we took a top to bottom approach where we service the professional market first, but we're doing a little bit more on the youth side. So we started making some more elevated apparel to service the professional players, and now we're kind of taking a bottom down approach where it's like, hey, what can we do for the youth guys and make it really cool for the next age of baseball. So that's what you guys can look forward to, and thank you for having me and talking about Tater. I appreciate it.